So hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is an introduction to refereeing tonight. So it's more about referee perspective rather than skater perspective. It's about referee mindset. It's about referee positioning. And there's a lot of stuff about the ethics of refereeing and the way referees approach a game. So it's not so much about the rules as it is how to be a referee. This is part one of a 2-day, 14-hour clinic that I do for referees. A full weekend clinic. Oh yeah, it takes a long time to learn to be a referee. It takes a long time. So this is the first hour and a half or so of the ref clinic. Can everyone see the PowerPoint introduction to Derby refereeing? Justin, can you see that? Okay. So I'm going to try and not bore you to death with PowerPoint, but there are 80 slides in this, and I am going to talk a lot. So sorry. All right, so any examples that are used in this training are mine. I don't like to call out other referees. It's frowned upon by the WFTDA. In fact, when you sign the officiating code of conduct, it says explicitly you won't call out other officials on social media or publicly. So there's this real belief that officials should be a monolith. They should uphold each other's calls and decisions, and you don't sit as a referee with skaters or other officials and bad talk officials. You may privately discuss calls you disagree with an official, but you never actually say publicly, man, that was a crap call. We just don't do things like that. It's considered unprofessional, and they get very upset about it. I do have a bunch of examples I will use to illustrate things throughout this, and these are all my examples from my last 7 years of officiating. So what we're going to do today, begin at the beginning, learn the ropes of officiating, positions and responsibilities, and how to define the pack. It all sounds very basic, and in some ways it is, but this is at the core of what referees do. So I'll begin at the beginning. What do we do as a Derby official? Well, first and foremost is safety. That is really our primary concern in every circumstance in Derby, is the safety. The safety of the skaters, the safety of the officials, the safety of the spectators, the safety of the medics, the safety of ourselves, safety of everyone involved. That is first and foremost. That is above fair gameplay. It's above managing game flow. It's above everything else. Safety is of paramount importance. It used to be that we had even more safety and responsibility. We did gear checks. I'm sure everybody remembers that. That went away because there was no formal training in how to do gear checks. So because of that, we couldn't standardize, and different referees did gear checks in different ways. So it was decided to take that out. The head referee is the ultimate authority in all things Derby at a game. Whether it's skaters on the track, it's whether gear is allowed, it's how spectators are allowed to participate or not. The head referee has the authority to remove spectators from the venue. Head referee has the power to shut down a game if need be. I've done that once in 7 years. We had a game, and I actually have a picture from it later, and I'll talk about when I get to it. Second is ensuring fair gameplay. We want to be impartial. We want to make sure the game is played per the WFTDA rules, whatever rule set is being used. In this case, nowadays, the January 2017 rule set. And we want to make sure that everyone's having a decent experience under fair gameplay rules. We should never be biased towards one team or another. And I think if you ask most referees, they will tell you, even jam referees, they can't tell you what the score is. They can't tell you who's winning. They can't tell you how much time is left on the clock because we just don't look. We don't pay attention to that at all. The head referee may know how much time is left in the game clock, but we don't look at the score. We don't look at who's winning, how many penalties each team has. All that matters is, are things fair? And that means adjudicating equally between both teams. And that gets right down to, let's say I know, hope I don't call anybody's number. Let's say I know that blue 467 has a habit of throwing elbows. I would never ever tell an officiating crew, hey, watch out for blue 467, she likes to throw elbows. Because what that does is immediately bias the officials to watch 467 more closely than they would other skaters. And they will find penalties, most often elbows, because they've been told to watch for elbows. So we'll say, watch both teams for elbows, but we won't pick anybody out of that, and out of the teams to say, watch this particular person. In some areas of the US, you'll find that referees, the head referee, will talk to both coaches at halftime and ask them, hey, how's the game going? Is there anything you're seeing from your bench that we're missing? Do you have anything that needs to be tightened up? They'll ask them those kinds of questions. Then the head referee will bring that back to the crew. We never say, the blue coach says to watch the red team because they're blocking with their head. Because all we've done is bias the referees to watch the red team more closely. So we just say, the coaches say. So we try and abstract everything. We never ever call people out by name or number or by color. We just say, watch for XYZ. And we try and ensure fair gameplay as much as possible. Our third priority is to manage the game flow and the game energy. And this sounds kind of weird. I mean, the game's going to happen no matter what, but the referees have a real power in how the game plays out in terms of the energy of the game and starting and stopping the clock. If you stop the clock a lot as a head referee, you will drag the game down. Skaters cool down, they get tired. I try and keep my official reviews less than 3 minutes long, because any more than that, people are getting antsy. The spectators aren't happy anymore. The skaters are getting ticked off. And so we try and keep things as short as possible to keep the game going. There's a great matrix that I've seen which shows different types of referees. There's the get it right ref, who will take as long as possible to get the right answer and explain that answer to the skaters every single time. And I've seen a get it right ref take an official review of 13.5 minutes in a game in order to explain to the skaters exactly why they were deciding the review the way they were. And that kills the game for everybody. That's just not worth it. I tend to be a game flow ref. I like to keep the game moving. Everyone is there to watch derby and to play derby. They are not there to watch people in striped shirts stand in a circle and talk to each other. So the referee should be as invisible as possible. We manage the game energy by maintaining, for lack of a better way of putting it, maintaining a Zen state. The more calm the officials are, the more calm the game is. So the way it flows normally is the more calm the head referee is, the more calm the rest of the referees and the NSOs are, the less overworked the skaters get, the less overwrought the skaters get. Doesn't mean it's not energetic, doesn't mean it's not a hard-hitting, fast, aggressive game. It just means that it keeps the anger down, which I think is a good way to run a game. So those are our top three: safety, fair gameplay, and game flow and game energy. You'll notice nowhere on there say anything about ensure that team A wins over team B. I've heard this again and again. We lost the game because of the officials. No, you lost the game because you lost the game. And I know I've heard skaters say that. I've had ref games. I had ref for one league. They were an underground league, a renegade league. They didn't follow any rules except the ones they decided to follow on a per game basis. And they destroyed the pack a lot. So we had a lot of pack destructions, a lot of penalties. And at the end of it, they were very upset with me because I called a lot of pack destructions. They didn't ask me to ref again for a year, and I came back and ref for them, and they were much better at not destroying the pack. They invited me to their after party, and I went to the after party, and one of them came up to me and said, you see, we don't destroy the pack nearly as much anymore, and we still fucking hate you. So there's leagues you don't go back to. You have a right to say, I don't want to officiate for you. Some people are going to be angry no matter what. Their style of derby is to play angry. And you can choose to officiate for them or not officiate for them. It's up to you. I prefer to officiate for skaters who want to play the game, not who want to get in fights or be angry at each other. All right, common mistakes. Common mistakes when you're starting to referee. And I will tell you up front that I have suffered from this mistake. I suffered from this mistake probably the first 2.5 years I refereed derby. And it took a long time to get over it, understand why I was involved in this sport. And I'd like to think I don't do this anymore, but I know every occasionally I slip. It's not about you. As an official, this game is not about your ego. It's not about making the most calls. It's not about making the best calls. It's about being on skates with stripes on, and if you see a penalty, call it. That's all it's about. Referees make mistakes, NSOs make mistakes in paperwork and timing in the penalty box, score mistakes are made, mistakes happen, but it's not about us. The best thing we can do is learn from our mistakes and move forward. So not being about us, leave your ego at the door. One of the worst things for a head referee to hear, and I've done this myself, and Well, one of the worst things is you go up to a referee and you say, hey, that back block call you made out there, I'm not sure that was a back block. Well, I was trying to justify, and I saw this happen, and I really think that, no, don't try and justify it. Just tell me what you saw. Don't tell me you decided to call a back block because the skater's been committing back blocks all through the game, therefore that must have been a back block. And I've heard that kind of argument too. Well, she had back blocks earlier, so I saw her hit somebody hard, that must have been a back block. No. And when a head referee says no, my job is to say, okay, I made a mistake, thanks, got it, and move on. Correct my error, don't do it again. So it's not about your ego. And I spent so many games trying to justify the calls I had made. In an official review, it is not likely, but it is possible that someone's call is overturned. When you've got 7 referees, probably a majority have seen an action, hopefully a majority have seen an action, and you won't see a penalty overturned or a no call turned into a call. But it does happen. And when that happens, if you take it personally as a referee that your call is overturned, you shouldn't be refereeing. You're in the wrong place. It's not about your ego. It's about what you saw and how fast you could process what you saw. And if you can't process it fast enough or you make the wrong decision, that's okay. I figure most games, a good ref crew catches 80% of the illegalities that happen. And we're not going to get better than that. You know, the standard saying is when the skaters skate a perfect game, we'll referee a perfect game. And that's how it works. No one's ever perfect in this. We're just human. So it's not about you. And that takes a while for referees to learn. If I come to when I'm head refereeing at my officials meeting beforehand, I'll tell all the refs, if I come to you during the game and I have something I need you to do for me, I'm just going to tell you to do it. I'm not going to say, if you don't mind, could you please? I'm just going to say, do this. Because there isn't time and it's not about your ego. I'm not going to candy coat it. I'm not going to, soft sell it. I will say, do this, please, and we're done. And if you can't do that, please tell me as an official, because I will find some other way to make you, I'll find another way to use you during a game. None of you, but an official in general. So let your ego go. That's the most common mistake there is, ego. Officiating guides. There are a whole lot of different guides out there that can help you learn Derby as an official. First of all, the WFTDR rules and casebook. This is the Bible now for Derby. And they've split it out. For those of you who used to read the old rules, because everyone read the rules, right? Repeatedly, many, many times. Everything was a flow chart. Penalties were, if skater A hits skater B with a forearm and skater B falls down because of it, that's a penalty. And the job of the official was to go through that flow chart in their head, figure out if a penalty had happened, and if it had, to get the skater's color, number, and call it out fast enough that the penalty was issued in a reasonable time. Most of that has gone out the window now. The new rules and casebook make it all about how does it affect the game. So an illegal action, either hitting someone with an illegal target or with an illegal blocking zone or hitting to an illegal target zone and causing someone to fall down, lose position, go off the track, whatever the metric is, only matters if it affects the game. So you see odd things now. Blue blocker hits red blocker with a forearm in the pack, knocks red blocker down, jammer gets by and gets a point. That's a penalty. Blue blocker hits red blocker with a forearm 18 feet from the pack, red blocker falls down, no points are scored, the game is not affected, may not be a penalty because the game wasn't affected. It's all about game impact. So what that means is that to be an official, you have to understand the game before you can officiate the game. It used to be all you had to do was know the flow charts and you could referee a game. Now you have to know how the game is played in order to be able to officiate, because you have to understand how the game has been affected by an action. But the rules and casebook are the most important thing we use. After that, the WFTDA forum. Are any of you WFTDA reps for your league? Honey Badger, you are. Do you use the forum?
I've been on there, but I've not been active.
Okay. Well, even lurking, there's a lot on there. In the past week, there's been discussion of clockwise blocking, discussion of when do you penalize someone for an equipment violation. The case that came up, because there's always these edge cases, always the edge cases we have to study as referees. Referees are language geeks. We parse the language of the rules because the skaters are parsing them too. You're all skaters, most of you are skaters, you know that. You parse the rules looking for loopholes, not to game the rules to your advantage. That's part of playing derby. So in this particular case, a skater's mouth guard landed on the track during the jam. No one could tell which skater it was. So the question was, do we call the jam, find out who it is and issue a penalty? Do we keep the jam going and tell them afterwards and issue a penalty? What if it's a second mouth guard they happen to have in their bra strap that's popped out? And then somebody came up and said, I had a game last week where a coach threw a mouth guard onto the track from the bench to try and get the jam called because his jammer didn't get lead. So he dropped a mouth guard thinking that the refs would call the jam. So, you know, people are still trying to game the rules, but the forum is the place to get the answers, because that's where the senior officials will show up to debate, discuss, and answer these questions. So if you are not a WFTDA rep and your league has space for more, I would recommend that you arrange to become a WFTDA representative so you can actually read the forum. And you don't have to post, just read. I've been on there for 5 years. I just read. I very rarely post anything. Smasher Study Guide to the 2017 Rules of WFTDA Play. This is Adam Smasher. He's a very active referee on the forum. He's an active referee on roller derby tough rules and clarifications. He's active all over the place.
You drop the Wi-Fi and come
Yeah. Well, reading the study guide about the new rules is really helpful. And if people want, I can post the link to this, but you can just Google that, you'll find it. It's a Google Doc. RefEd. RefEd is started by a referee named Werner von Baum from Wisconsin. It's a series of videos about refereeing with freeze frames that says, here's what this is. You see this slow motion sequence? This is a classic backball. In terms of learning penalties and learning what to look for, he's very helpful. Make the Call is a French video series on YouTube. They have videos of actions from a number of different angles. Different referees are wearing helmet cams, and they will cut back and forth and show you different perspectives. Remember, a referee wants to see action and wants to see all three things. I'm going to mute here. Yep, it's Nathan. I muted it. So you have to see initiation, action, and result. And Make the Call helps you to understand how to see those things, because they actually show you from different angles, initiation, action, result of different penalties. Zebra Huddle. Zebra Huddle is a public forum, unlike the WFTDA forum. WFTDA forum, you have to be a rep to get access, and you have to have your league request access for you. Zebra Huddle is a public forum. Anyone can join in, and a lot of the senior refs are on there as well. It is not going to be canon. It's not definitive. It won't be the ultimate answer, but it will help you learn how to be a better referee. And last but not least, the WFTDA TV archives. Derby is a visual activity, and the only way I think to learn how to actually be a good official, other than read the rules and study with other officials, is to watch games. I am a terrible derby fan because I don't watch the game. I'm not watching the skaters. I'm watching the officials and the calls they make. So even when I'm watching a game, I'm officiating the game, and I'm watching what the officials do. Miss J hates it when we go to tournaments, like we go to champs every year. She doesn't like it because she'll go, did you see that? You see that pass there and how she got the hip whip? No, I was watching the jammer ref make a cut call back there. So I don't watch the game, I watch the officials. But watch the archives. And if you can watch them with a group of like-minded people and have an official or two in there with experience, or if you have experience, you'll get a lot more out of it because you'll be able to freeze frame and pause and discuss what's happening in a game as you're watching it. So bout review, I think, is a very important thing to do. I've also been considering doing remote bout review. So something like this video conference, but reviewing a bout as a group, where we can pause and say, here's this action, and back up and watch it again. So I've been thinking about ways to make that happen, so to help people learn to officiate. If anyone's interested, let me know. So at the beginning, we all make mistakes. We can't help it. We are human. We will see things differently. The important thing is to accept that we make those mistakes, learn from them, and move on. So here's some examples. My very first game as an outside pack ref, very first game ever in Derby, I was OPR, and I had a skater from Jet City in Bellingham, Washington, take a hip whip off me. She was hit to the outside on the apex. She grabbed my hips and took a whip around me to get back on the track. And I was a brand new ref, and I went, oh, okay, and kept officiating, my first game ever. And I should have given her a penalty. She should have been ejected from the game, but I didn't know any better. I was a new ref. So she got to keep playing, and she got back on the track because she took a hip whip off a ref. That happens. The do-over. In my third year of refereeing, I was head ref for a game in a tournament in Port Orchard, and actually Bremerton, Washington. And the first jam of the second period started. We got 1 second into it, and somebody called an official timeout. So what's supposed to happen is the jam's over. The jam took place. You go on, you deal with the official timeout, and you start the second jam. I reset everything. I reset the period clock. I had all the NSOs erase the first jam from their paperwork, and we started the second period over again. So that's a big mistake. It's a huge mistake. I never did that again. But you learn from it, you move on. Do-over part 2. You're going to Hawaii. I'll be in Hawaii. And the tournament head referee is bipolar Lola. I was on Lola's crew at a tournament called Spoke Carnage 4 years ago. And the very first jam of the game hadn't started. The jam timer blew a rolling whistle and said 30 seconds. One team put all their blockers and a jammer out. The other team put 2 blockers out, no jammer. 5 seconds, no more blockers, no jammer. Jam starts. Team B has a 2-minute power jam, and they got 40 points. At the end of it, immediately the team that didn't field called an official review, and we all came in a circle, and the captain and coach came in, and they leaned in, and Lola said, "This is White's official review for the first period. What can we do for you?" And the White captain said, "We'd like a do-over. This is a sanctioned tournament game." And Lola said, "A do-over? What do you mean?" "Well, we didn't get to field the jammer." And Lola said, "The other team fielded a jammer, and they heard, we didn't hear them make the 5 seconds call. The other team heard them. You make it. 2 of your blockers heard it. You had 2 on the track. No do-overs in Derby. Sorry, next jam." And they lost the game by 35 points. So that one jam cost them the game because they didn't field the jammer. So everybody makes mistakes, whether it's skaters or officials. The trick is to learn from them and move on. Anybody have any questions? We can pause here for a second. No? We good to keep going? Cool. All right, so learn, remember, move on. That's the important thing for all of us. If you decide to officiate Derby on skates, it will be a constant learning cycle. You'll be learning all the time. You'll learn something new every game. Because skaters, whether it's deliberate or inadvertent, there are always ways that you have to, the rules can't cover every situation. There are always ways that the game will test you as an official to match what's happening to the rules, or to find ways to interpret what's happening that are covered by the rule set. There are always going to be things you go, I have no idea what to do about that. Case in point, a game 6 months ago, white and black, where the black jammer took off her helmet cover and star passed it to the white pivot. And the white pivot took it, put it on, and raced out of the engagement zone. And the front pack ref went, "You are not the black jammer, out of play." And she had to come back in because she was the white pivot. Well, there's nothing in the rules covering that. She legally accepted a star pass from the black jammer. The jammer ended up getting a penalty because she had initiated the star pass and it shouldn't have gone to the white pivot. So it was the jammer's fault. But you have to find ways to make the rules fit what's happening. So learn, remember, move on. All right. Really basic. I apologize if this is something that you're really comfortable with, but what's about? Can someone define for me? I don't care who it is. What is about? How do you define about?
You could say a mashup between two teams. Cannibal pass there.
Sure. Anybody else? Dorothy, you got any ideas? What's about?
The game between 2 different teams, 30 minutes a half.
So why is that not a
jams of up to 2 minutes in length?
So why is that not a scrimmage?
Legal amount of skaters, legal amount of referees.
Maybe. The reality is it's very difficult to define what about is. I mean, we know, scrimmages, we're playing Derby for a while. Maybe we play it to 2 30-minute periods, with, you know, up to 2-minute jams and a full officiating crew, maybe we decide to call that a bout. It's up to the people involved, whether it's a bout or a scrimmage or a mashup, whatever you want to call it. There really is no solid definition for a bout. So the definitions we use instead, we have these different organizations that play derby in the US and around the world. The WFTDA, MAID, USARS, and Radical, RDCL. So Women's Flat Track Derby Association is the 700-pound gorilla. Hundreds of leagues that are members and a few thousand more that are not but play to those rule sets. MAID is Modern Athletic Derby Endeavor. They started off as a flat track rule set, but their rule set is now written to work for flat and bank track. Same rules, 90-second jams, 1-minute penalties, things like that. USARS, USA Roller Sports. This group, has anybody here ever skated USARS? No? Okay. So USARS claims to be...
No, but I've watched several.
You've watched it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they claim to be the
It
gold
has some
standard
weird-
for roll. Sorry, go ahead.
That it has some weird rules.
Yes, it does. They claim to be the gold standard for roller derby because USA Roller Sports is the roller organization responsible for roller sports in the Olympics. They claim they control all there is for roller derby in the world. They don't really. They are a relative newcomer to derby. They've been around years in roller hockey and speed skating, but they're relatively new in the derby world, and they're not really gaining a lot of acceptance. There aren't a whole lot of leagues that skate USAR's rules. They are very interesting rules. They really lend themselves to speed skaters. The foremost skaters on the track are always the pack. So whoever's at the front is the pack. Everyone has to keep up with them. Jammers can change lead depending on passing each other. So lead changes depending on which jammer's in front. There's a lot of different things in that game. And then last but not least is Roller Derby Coalition of Leagues, or Radical. They are a bank track only rule set. And this is what most of the bank track leagues in the US skate to. 1-minute jams, 30-second penalties. You can't stop on the bank track. You must always roll forwards. You can't back up. So there's a few things like that. They are the leader in bank track derby. They have, I think, 14 leagues that skate in the US, that skate their rules, because a bank track costs $50,000. So it's not easy to do. So those are the various groups that play derby. Let's talk about types of games. So sanction versus regulation versus other. This has just changed, but this graphic still holds true. So here we have WFTDA League A and non-WFTDA League A, League B, non-WFTDA League B. If WFTDA League A's travel team plays WFTDA League B's travel team, that is a sanctioned game. That is travel team against travel team, and that is designed to be a rankings calculator for both leagues. The results of that game will affect the rankings of both teams. So in Okinawa, anytime we had one of the sanctioned games, that was a rankings match between those two leagues. Anytime a home team from League A plays a home team from League B, that's a regulation game. It is played according to WFTDA rules. It has a requisite number of NSOs, a requisite number of officials. The track will match a regulation track, but it is not played for rankings. Now, it turns out that under the new definition, if League A has 2 home teams, and those home teams play each other, so it's inside the league, that is now considered regulation as well. It doesn't have to be between 2 leagues. It can be inside 1 league. But sanctioned play must be between 2 separate leagues. Anything else is an other. Others don't count except they're good experience. They're for everybody, for all the officials, for the skaters. They're good practice. They're training, whatever you want to call them. But these are the ones that count. And the reality is, for rankings, sanctioned games count. Regulation just counts because you're using the WFTDA rule set. So, what makes a good ref? We said already, leave your ego at the door. You can't come into this as an official and have an ego, because you are going to have skaters and fans yell the most horrible things at you about your heritage and your parents and what they think of the shape of your body and how bad your calls are and how much you need glasses and anything you can imagine, they will yell at you. So you have to really leave your ego and just accept that for these people, this is, Maybe not the skaters, because there are certain codes of conduct skaters have to adhere to, but certainly for fans, this is how they have fun. They come out and do this. And that's how I view it. I had some years ago, I had a fan in the front row of a game who drank 5 or 6 great big cups of beer and took his shirt off and stood up going, woo, in the front row. And he was really annoying because he was loud and he was visually distracting. And then I realized this guy had paid $15 for a ticket. He'd paid $10 for each beer. He'd probably spent $50 on beer. And his idea of fun was to get drunk, take off his shirt, and yell woo in the front row. And if that's how he got his fun, great. It cost him $65, and he was having a good time and making money for the league. So, you know, good for him. So at that point, I managed to switch the perspective and not be annoyed by him anymore. So you've got to leave your ego at the door. Learn from your mistakes. If you make a mistake and someone points it out to you, don't take it personally, accept that it happened and fix it, because we're all going to make mistakes. Don't take it personally and accept constructive criticism. Head referees, head NSOs, sometimes skaters. They're all going to have criticism. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Try and accept criticism in a constructive light, because that's how it's normally intended. Any questions? Now, this isn't quite, you know, how to define the pack. We're going to get there. This is what's behind all that officials do. The importance of traveling. This is really hard when you're in a place like Okinawa or in mainland Japan, the main island, but it is important. Working for your home league alone is not going to be enough if you're an official. You will come to understand the foibles of the people on your crew if you work for a home league. And if you only work with that league, then you won't stretch yourself and you won't better yourself as an official. You will only work with those people, and you will have learned to work with their inconsistencies as they will have learned to work with yours, and you won't correct those mistakes, neither will they. You'll cover for each other. So you need to get out and work for other leagues. Learn from other leagues' officials, become known in your area. This helps too. You want to work other leagues' games, you want to be an official to work around the area, people should know who you are. So I do things like this. I have this conference with all of you. So Okinawa knows who I am. The Sushi sure know who I am. I've done this for Shanghai and Hong Kong and Beijing, and we had one to Bangkok, and it's important to get known. And that way you'll be able to get more experience as an official. Online presence helps. Go to the WFDA forum. Go to Zebra Huddle. Post on the Make the Call YouTube channel when you have questions. All these kinds of things make a difference. And practice makes perfect. The more you practice, the better. I looked at it once. I compared skater practice time versus official practice time within a single league. I worked out that the officials, if you included the off-skates time they spent discussing and reading and watching bouts and other training for Derby, officials spend 7 to 8 times more practicing Derby than skaters do. For skaters, it's a physical activity, and it's also mental because there's a whole lot of strategy involved. But the officials, pretty much all they think about is Derby if they're into it. I've got 360 games in my games history right now on my resume, and for each of those games, I've probably got 10 to 15 scrimmages behind it. So in 7 years, that's 3,500 scrimmages, 3,600 scrimmages. So I practice a lot. I practice all the time. When I'm not on skates, I'm watching games and practicing my calls by watching games. So attend practice scrimmages to tune your ref perception. Watching a game as a ref is very different. As I said, I'm a terrible Derby fan because I can't watch the game. I'm not watching the pack. I'm not watching the strategy of the game. I'm watching the officiating of the game, and I'm watching the illegalities the skaters commit. And that's how I watch Derby. Develop your professional network. Meet other officials. Go to RollerCon. Right, Dorothy? RollerCon's where it's at. 5,000 Derby people in one place.
6 years in a row.
Yep. 5,000 Derby people in one place for a week. And all they do is Derby. In the 6 days I was at RollerCon last year, I refereed 42 hours. And I had applied for divisional playoffs last year in Vancouver, and the tournament head referee at RollerCon was Umpire Strikes Back, and was also the tournament head referee in Vancouver. So there's a number of full-length games at RollerCon, and he staffed me as inside pack ref, outside pack ref, and jam ref on 3 full-length games. And I discovered after the fact that was my audition to go work divisionals. Was I good enough to work full-length games at RollerCon? And he watched, and if I was, then I was good enough to work his games at Vancouver divisionals, at D1 divisionals. So develop that network. When people know you, it's much easier to get staff. If you apply to work a tournament, which I'd recommend everybody do as an official, you'll find that having references who are known by the tournament head referee or being known yourself by tournament head referee will make all the difference in the world. If they're familiar with you as an official, it'll help a lot. All right, should we talk about actual refereeing? Now we've talked about all the boring background. Anybody have any questions? Cool. All right. So a full ref crew is 7 referees. The back pack ref is normally the head referee. The front pack ref may be the head referee, but not always. It used to be one of the 2 jammer referees could also be the head referee. They've removed that in the new rule set, so you can no longer be a jammer ref and the head ref. You have to be one of the inside pack refs. And then 3 OPRs, outside pack referees. Everyone has their own roles and responsibilities. I'm going to cover all those. Yay, a track. So here's the start of a jam. 8 skaters on the track, or 8 blockers. 4 red, 4 blue, 2 jammers, 7 refs. The front pack ref is 12 to 15 feet in front of the pack, looking back towards them. The back pack ref can be in a number of different places. They can be in front of the 2 jam refs. They can be between the 2 jam refs. They can be behind the 2 jam refs. It's entirely up to them where they want to start. There we go. Did I go too far? Probably did. The outside pack refs, the front outside pack ref is looking back at the front wall. The middle outside pack ref is between the 2 walls or near the front of the front wall. And the back outside pack ref is on the jammer line, assuming the pack starts at the back. And the back outside pack ref is watching for false starts, multiplayers, back blocks by the jammers. The middle OPR is watching for illegalities in the pack itself. And the front OPR has the best positioning to see things like high blocks by the front wall or multiplayers by the front wall. The front outside pack ref is not in a good position to see back blocks by jammers. They can't see through the blue blockers. They can't see a back block. Remember, as a referee, you have to see initiation, the action, and the result. You must see all 3 things. If you don't see all 3 things, you can't make a call. If you think a jammer hit someone in the middle of the back and knocked them down, you may see them fall down, but you've only seen one of the 3 things. You saw the result. You didn't see initiation, you didn't see action. Therefore, you cannot make a call. Without seeing all 3 components, you can't make a call, ever. I want to drive that home to people. You must see all 3 components or you can't make a call. And skaters get really upset because they know they were back blocked. And the referee may know it too, but if you didn't see the initiation, you can't make the call. I can see a skater whose head whips and she falls down on the track and you know she's been hit from behind. I didn't see her get hit from behind, therefore I can't make a back block call. So the refs start in roughly this position. And the jam refs may move a little. The back pack ref, who is the head referee, normally may move a little. But this is the basic position they start in. Everybody okay with that? Cool. 7 refs and a full crew. Oddly enough, you only have to have 3 referees for regulation and sanction play, which is a really small number of referees. You have to have a head ref and 2 jam refs. I would not want to have a head ref and 2 jam refs for a sanctioned game. You can't see cuts on the outside. You can't see forearms on the outside. You can't see any outside actions. And you have to assume they were all legal because you can't see them. So at least 1 OPR. I would want a 4th referee on the outside if I could do it. But you're only required to have 3 refs. It's good to have an alternate if you can do it. If you're lucky enough to have someone who can serve as an 8th referee, it's useful, but it's not required. So the head ref, what's their job? Game safety, game flow, and rules application. The head ref is the ultimate authority when it comes to safety of the game. And that includes venue safety. If the venue is unsafe, the head referee can call the game. I said I'd only done this once. I called a game some years ago when you'll see it. Well, when I get to the picture, I'll tell you about it. Making sure the game flow continues, the game isn't stopped unnecessarily, and make sure the rules are applied fairly and cleanly across both teams. Defining the pack is also the head ref's the primary job of the head referee. Front pack ref will also do secondary pack definition, but the head ref does the majority of it. And the head ref is the liaison between all the officials and the skaters. This is sliding a bit as time goes by. It used to be head refs and captains meetings would tell the captains, if anybody has a question, please come to me. And they would answer all the questions. If they needed to get another referee in, they would call the referee over. If they needed an NSO, they'd call the NSO over. Most refs now, in an effort to keep the game going, will say, if you have a question that a different ref can answer in 30 seconds, please feel free to ask them. If it's going to take longer than that, come to me. But to keep the game moving, they normally say, you can talk to other referees as well, or NSOs. Particularly now that we've got penalty trackers who are managing the count for how many penalties a skater has, or penalty box timers who have the paperwork for it. You can talk to those people now. It used to be that skaters couldn't talk to any of them. They were told, talk to the head ref only. Head ref also manages all officials, skaters, and the audience. Well, the audience? How does the head ref manage the audience? Well, I already said that it's possible to have audience members who are distracting or doing things that are dangerous or, you know, just disrupting a game in general. I had a game, and please forgive the language, but I had a game some years ago. It was two juniors teams, and they were good juniors. They were Seattle area juniors teams. And one of them went down, and it took 6.5 minutes to get her off the track. She was 16 years old. She dislocated her kneecap. It took the medics 6.5 minutes to get her to a stretcher and off the track. About 4 minutes in, a fan in the audience stood up and yelled, "Fucking bitch is faking it." And this was a man in his 40s. This was a 16-year-old girl. It turned out he was the parent of an opposing skater from the other team. And I had him removed from the building because that's never called for any time, but especially in a game where it's 16-year-old girls playing. I mean, that's the end. You're out. Goodbye. So security helped him out of the building. So the head ref in that case is responsible for the actions of the audience, managing the audience. Head ref's also the ultimate arbitrator in all game disputes. The head ref's word stands. And this comes back to keeping your ego out of it. It's very easy for new head referees to let their ego take over and get a little power trippy. And it's, you know, I am the authority, you will listen to me. And that tends to amp up game flow because skaters' energy gets up. They're, you know, they get riled because of it. M head ref said this, and they get angry. So it's always good to try and be not humble, but just be calm about it. You can be a head referee and be the ultimate arbitrator in all game disputes without being a jerk. If you're a jerk, chances are the skaters won't want you back and they won't enjoy the game that you officiate for them. So just, you know, remember they're people too. Everybody makes mistakes, and officiate in as calm, impartial a fashion as possible. And a lot of it comes back to that. And mentor other officials. Help the referees, help the NSOs. When I applied for certification the first time, I got denied 3 times. Every 6 months I applied for certification and was denied. And the feedback I got from the certification panel was, it has been noted that you were demeaning to an NSO. And I said, can you give me more information on this? Well, it has been noted. And that's all they gave me. And I went back through my games history and I found a game where I had an argument with the jam timer. She disagreed with how I felt she should be starting the clock. And it was early on, and I'd sort of gone, look, I'm the head referee and here's how you're going to do it. And to this day, I'm pretty sure that that action cost me my certification for 1.5 years because she sent an evaluation and said, this guy's a jerk. It happens. You know, you have to, it was a lesson I had to learn that I had to treat everyone respectfully. Everyone has their own reasons for being in Derby. I'm no better than anybody else in this game. And it's not my game. I'm there to officiate it in a fair, impartial, safe fashion. And so I have to be careful in how I treat everybody in this game. Treat them with the respect with which I would like to be treated. And that's what it's about. All right, safety. Everyone see that picture? I ref that game. It was one of the most difficult games I've ever refereed because the track line is yellow and black caution tape on a green and black striped sport court. It's on top of a hockey rink, and you can see in the lower center That's 4x8 sheets of particle board they laid down over the ice. And as the ice warmed up and started to melt, the particle board swelled and got soft. And as well as the track lines being invisible, I know the 10-foot lines were green, as well as the track being invisible, the floor got soft and buckled under you as you skated on it. Because the board was soft underneath, you were squishing it and water came up through the floor. So there's a safety issue for you right there. Nowadays, if I showed up and there was enough time, I would say to a team, if we had enough time, I would say, I'm sorry, you have to relay your track in different colors. Because the skaters can't see that, the officials can't see that, that is not a safe track. Now, is it going to impact the safety of the game? Maybe. It's definitely going to impact gameplay because nobody can see the edge of the track. Nobody can see 10-foot lines. That's an example of a really poorly thought out track layout. Remember the Renegade game where I went to the after party? This is that game. The skater in blue is from a WFTDA league. The skater in purple, 143, is from the Renegade League. At the end of the jam, these two decided they didn't like each other and they just went at it. And myself and the other pack referee took each of them off the track in a headlock because they wouldn't break the fight. They just kept fighting. The blue skater, if you look closely, her mouth guard is coming out of her mouth because the punch has just landed on the side of her face, knocking her mouth guard out. 2011, 6 years ago. They were both ejected from the game. And the purple team's fans got very upset that we had stopped the fight. Because they're renegade. They want to see fights. They want to see violence. They want to see aggression. So during the second half of the game, they started yelling, kill the refs, fuck the refs, kill the refs, fuck. They were chanting it in unison. And then one of them had a great big drink of some kind, and they threw it into the outside pack ref lane as a ref skated by, so they slid out and fell down. And that was the point. We had 12 minutes left in the second period, and I said, we're done. And the officials all got together. I pulled the captains in, and I said, we no longer feel this game is safe for the officials. We're leaving. And we left. We ended the game. And they were very unhappy about that. But if that's how they wish to play Derby, that is not the kind of game I will officiate, nor am I willing to put the safety of officials in jeopardy for the game. So that didn't go over well. But there's a big safety issue. How about this? This is Gotham Girls Roller Derby. It's one of their promo photos. That is Evilicious, who is the captain for the Brooklyn Bombshells. Anybody see anything wrong with that, safety-wise? One, no helmet. Anything else? No mouth guard. Yeah. So every league has its own rules regarding what you have to be wearing when you're upright on skates. As a head referee, if I'm visiting a league, I will normally say to them, I'll ask them what their rule is, what the rules are regarding safety gear on skates. I do that now anyway. And I normally prefer to see skaters with all their safety gear on. I don't want to see someone with a concussion. I know we're not playing the game, but really, you're on skates, you're in a low crossover stance, and you fall over and hit your head, and there's a concussion that changes your life. So I'd rather see people be safe and not have great hair for their photo than, look good and have brain damage. So there's all kinds of things to think about in safety. Suicide seating. I have seen time and time again, people sit down with their kids in suicide seating and bring infants in strollers to suicide seating at the side of the track. And I will always ask the OPRs before a game, if you see someone sit down with a child younger than 18 in the front suicide seating, please ask them to move to other seats. Because a kid, a small child can't protect itself from being nailed by a referee or a skater who gets hit to the outside. So, again, a safety issue. This should be signed, and anyone not observing it should be asked to move to different seats. I'll help them find different seats. I won't be a jerk about it. I'll get them great seats in the foremost row of chairs, but I will not let them sit on the floor near the edge of the track. Speaking of chairs, there's standard folding penalty box chair. Not the most safe thing in the world. Any skater coming into that hot and bumping that chair stands to hit an NSO. When Miss J was starting out in Derby, she was NSOing, and a skater jumped a chair, hit it hard, it came down on her toe, and it set her back almost 2 months because she couldn't put her skates on. She bruised her toes so badly just because the chair landed on her foot, she couldn't skate anymore. So chairs like that are probably not the best idea. Join them together, rope them together so they can't move so much, clamp them together, put a pad under them so they can't move on the floor, but do something, because something like that is just not a great way to have your penalty box. So safety as an official, it extends to all kinds of things. It's kind of scary sometimes how much you have to think about it. Do you have venue security? Is beer being served? Is it being served in such a place that that fans can get drunk and get rowdy? Do you have a separate beer garden? Is it being policed by security so that fans can't get out and cause trouble in the game? So there's all kinds of things to think about. That's the head ref. Any questions about that? Am I boring everybody? I can do a little dance if it'll help. It won't help, I know. Front pack ref, game safety and rules application, just like the head ref. Front out of play management. So the head referee will manage back out of play management. I'll have a graphic on this in a minute. And the front pack ref manages front out of play management. Out of play, of course, as everybody knows, is when a skater is more than 20 feet from the front or back of the pack. When they hit 20 feet, they're out of play. They can no longer play derby. Blockers can't engage jammers. Blockers can't engage blockers. And jammers can't engage blockers. If someone is out of play, a jammer can't initiate against them. So they manage the front out of play. Here's the example. So here's our track. We have 3 blue blockers and 4 red blockers and the blue jammer. They are the pack. Up front, we have a blue blocker and the red jammer. The blue blocker is successfully holding back the red jammer. But notice the red jam ref is right up with the red jammer. On the front, OPR is in position. They are watching the blue jammer the blue blocker engage the red jammer. And they are in position that the jam ref can see them by looking over the jammer or past the jammer. So if need be, the OPR can nod if something is good, or make a call, or shake their head, or do whatever the jam ref needs to let them know something has happened. The back pack ref is watching the pack, and the other 2 OPRs are also watching the pack from the front and the back. And the blue jam ref is watching his or her jammer enter the pack. So the back pack ref is watching the pack. You'll notice that if this is the lines, if those dotted lines are the lines the back pack ref is making with their hands, they are on the outside of the front and back blockers. We measure the pack according to the center of the hips. But you always want to hold your hands up for defining the pack to the front and back of the blockers, so that they can look at you and say, aha, I'm in the pack. I'm inside that hand. Therefore, I'm part of the pack. The front packer, meanwhile, is watching the blue blocker at the front. When that blue blocker goes out of play, goes more than 20 feet from the front of the pack, it is the front pack ref's job to inform them with the correct hand signal and verbal out of play. The front pack ref also handles supplemental pack definition. What does that mean? Well, the pack is now moved up front. We have 1 blue blocker and red jammer in the back. Normally the back pack ref would be handling the pack, but the back pack ref can't handle this pack and watch the blue blocker at the back at the same time. So there's been a handoff. The front pack ref is now watching the pack, and the back pack ref is watching the blue blocker in the back. So it shifts. The pack shifts back and forth, and as it moves, the pack refs will hand it off from front to back. There is no formal verbal cue. You may hear a ref say, you have the pack, or pack is yours. But a good front and back pack ref will be able to tell when the pack is moving, when they have to take it or give it up. So if the front pack ref sees the back pack ref moving back because there's a blocker moving back, they will take the pack automatically until the head ref comes back in. What's a jam ref do? Well, the jam ref counts points. Really easy, in theory. So here we have the blue jam ref and the blue jammer. Blue jammer is coming into the pack. Red jammer is being held at the back by a blue blocker. The blue jammer comes through the pack. Every red blocker she passes legally, upright and inbounds, is 1 point. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. As soon as that jammer leaves the engagement zone, the scoring pass is over and she has 4 points. But she must leave the engagement zone. That's the trigger. When she gets 20 feet from the pack, that's when the points are thrown, not until then. The only exception is when the jam is over. When the jam ends, as soon as that 4th whistle blows, the points are thrown. As the jam is over, there is no more engagement zone. Derby is not being played. It's time to let the scorekeepers know how many points the jammer got. Otherwise, the jammer must clear the engagement zone. So here's an aside for you. Let me back this up. This jammer comes through and gets 3 points. She's got 1, 2, 3 on the red blockers. Let's say the red pivot hits the blue jammer off the track, and the blue jammer cuts. She doesn't seed the cut. She cuts the track, and she is sent to the box. She is sent to the box with 3 points. She's passed 3 blockers, but not the pivot. So she goes and sits in the box with 3 points. Her jam ref will go and stand in the middle and watch while she's in the box, remembering the 3 points and remembering which blockers the blue jammer has passed. When the blue jammer comes back in, she still has 3 points, but she hasn't passed the red pivot. So she has to pass the red pivot and get out of the engagement zone to get the 4th point. So the jam ref has to remember not only how many points she had when she went to the box, they also have to remember who she hadn't passed. So when she comes back in and passes them, then that 4th point is thrown when she clears the engagement zone. And again, I see newer jam refs who, when a jammer goes to the box, they'll hold up points. They're supposed to, you hold those points, you keep them until the jammer clears the engagement zone. They count points, they watch for penalties committed by their jammer, and they watch for penalties committed by others against their jammer. That really is the job of the jam ref. Let's back this up. So here's a blue jammer on the outside. She's hit off the track. She comes in around 1, 2, 3 red blockers, 4 red blockers, and 1 blue blocker. She comes out and back in again. Under the new rule set, she can seed that cut. She can stop immediately, jump off the track, and come back in behind them. If she doesn't, if she tries to play derby, meaning she engages somebody, or she skates forwards, or does not immediately try and leave the track, that is a cut. So that's the #1 thing for OPRs on the outside. Watch for jammer penalties. The OPR's job is to support the inside, support the jam refs, and support the pack refs. So #1, watch for jammer penalties on the outside. #2, when the jammers are not there, when they're going around the track, watch for pack penalties. #3, handle out-of-play situations not caught by the back and front pack refs. And this gets kind of iffy because outside pack refs are told, don't signal out of play. Only the inside signals that. If the outside signals that, that becomes a problem because the outside has a different perspective on the track. Their 20 feet may not match the inside's 20 feet. And you as skaters know that when you see or hear out of play, you expect it from the inside of the track, not the outside of the track. It gets very confusing if the inside calls it, then a second later the outside calls it. So what the outside is supposed to do is only handle out of play penalties if the inside doesn't catch them, if they're busy doing something else. The alt should be available in case of a referee no-show or injury. They should be geared up and ready to skate. Serve as a games official, so they're helping to do evaluations. They are filling in official review paperwork, official timeout paperwork, and they're providing real-time feedback. That's the alt's job. Being an alt is a very important thing, but it kind of sucks because you don't get to skate unless somebody gets hurt or their gear breaks. Any questions so far? I'm not sure this is what you're looking for, but this is how I start teaching how to be a referee. All right, the pack definition. The pack is a large group of inbounds and upright blockers in proximity, including members from both teams. They've got to be upright, they've got to be inbounds, and they've got to be skaters, blockers from both teams. With the rules. Inbounds, upright. Jammers are never, ever part of the pack. Ever. Jammers can get pack penalties. They can get out of plays if they engage a blocker outside the engagement zone. They can get multiplayers if they try and help. So let's say the jammer decides she's going to help her blockers in a triangle. She's going to be the 4th one. She'll be their offense in a triangle. And she tries to block the opposing jammer but grabs one of her blockers. She can get a multiplayer block. And I've heard audience members and other skaters yell, how'd she get it out of play? She's the jammer. She engaged a blocker who was outside the engagement zone. That's a penalty. The blockers can't engage the jammers can't engage the blocker. Proximity is measured from hip center to hip center. 10 feet apart. Must be 10 feet apart. No more, no less, or excuse me, no more than 10 feet. Under the new rules, a lot of referees are letting it slip a little bit because, you know, if the pack's 11 feet apart and they're just waiting for jammers to come back in from the box, so the jammers are coming around in a lap, they're not affecting anything by being 11 feet apart. So until they get 12 feet or 11 and a half feet, let them be 11 feet. Don't call a no pack. So it's kind of it's a ref discretion thing, but normally it's 10 feet. Must be members from both teams. Very important. You know what a split pack is? Let's say you have blue and red. So if you have 3 blue and 1 red, and 3 red and 1 blue, and they're more than 10 feet apart, that is not a pack. We used to call split pack, now we just call no pack. And the skaters go, but there's a red blocker right here. Yeah, there's blue blockers up there. So when it's equal number, it's not a pack. So pack definition. This is really easy. Where's the pack? Right there. All the blockers are within 10 feet. That is the pack. Next one. Anyone know where the pack is? Where do you think the pack is?
It's in the front.
Everybody. It's less than 10 feet from the red pivot to the front red blocker. And it's less than 10 feet from the blue blockers to the blue blocker on the pivot line. So everybody is the pack. It's a spread out pack, but it's still a pack. How about now? Is the front blue blocker in the pack?
Yes.
Say they're within 20 feet of the other blue blocker who's within 10, right?
So 20 feet is the engagement zone, 10 feet is the pack. So if they're within 20 feet, if they're between 10 and 20 feet, they're in the engagement zone, but they're not in the pack. So in this case, that's the pack. The front blue blocker is more than 10 feet from the blue pivot, so they are not in the pack. They can still play derby, they're still within 20 feet, but they're not in the pack. How about this? Where's the pack? Oh, somebody's drawing, okay.
That's where I believe it.
They're all less than 10 feet apart.
There is no, they're all in play.
Yeah, they're all in play. The red blockers are recycling the blue jammer, and for some reason the blue blockers have this long stretched out bridge. So here's the trick to this that takes referees a long time to learn. This is part of developing ref vision. Look at the back 2 red blockers. If you look at those 2 blockers compared to the 10-foot lines they are near, they are more than 10 feet apart, according to those lines. Correct? However, those 10-foot lines are only 10 feet apart, whoops, are only 10 feet apart in the middle of the line. When you draw the 10-foot lines, on the inside arc, when you measure, it's 7 feet 1/2 inch. So those blockers are maybe 8 feet apart on the inside line. If they were on the outside line, they'd be more than 10 feet apart. Just because of the perspective from the center of the track, the 2 back red blockers are less than 10 feet apart. So when you define the pack, you define it from hip to hip, but you define it in a straight line from hip to hip. The 10-foot lines are optional, 10-foot marks. They are not intended to be used as the definitive guide to where the pack is. Skaters use them, as far as I know, to define where they are, but the referees don't. So a good referee should be able to tell where 10 feet is without having lines on the track, 10 and 20. The way I learned was I took painter's tape and I took a 10-foot stretch and put it along the wall of a long hallway in my house, and then put a 20-foot length. And as I walked down the hall, I would look at the tape. I would stand at one end and look at the tape. I would look at it over my shoulder. I'd look at it walking backwards until I could tell exactly how long it was. And then I transferred that length to the track when I was refereeing. because you need to be able to tell 10 and 20 feet without the lines on the track. The only verbal cue for pack definition is pack is here. You'll hear pack is front, pack is back, pack is all. The only thing that matters is pack is here. Skaters are supposed to know where the pack is. If referees tell them where the pack is, and I've heard this over and over again, the back pack ref calls pack is back, and skaters who are up front blocking a jammer immediately disengage because they think they're going out of play. They hear pack is back and they think they're too far forward. So in that sense, the referee's verbal cue is coaching the skaters to play or not play derby. And we're not supposed to coach skaters. So the only formal verbal cue we have is pack is here. And it's up to the skaters to know where here is. The only verbal cue for the pack breaking is no pack. So we have pack is here, no pack. You should never have to repeat a no pack. If you as an official repeat a no pack, somebody should be getting a failure to reform penalty. So the metric says they must immediately attempt to reform. So I normally go, no pack, are they reforming? Nope, penalty. By the time I get to nope, I would be calling no pack again, and there's a penalty because someone is not reforming the pack. You have to be loud enough they can hear you, obviously. The verbal cue for failing to reform is failure to reform. Now, unfortunately, in the current rule set, a lot of these are all out of play penalties. So failure to reform, failure to return, out of play penalty, they all have the same hand signal. And they're all marked as a P for out of play on the paperwork. But failure to reform is the cue. I think I talked about this last time we had a session, but I'll mention it again. Skaters get confused because you'll hear no pack, pack is here, failure to reform penalty. And skaters go, but the pack reformed, why am I getting a failure to reform? The actual order of operations that happened was no pack, failure to reform, pack is here. But because the important thing is that derby be played, we give priority to reforming the pack over calling the penalty. The penalty's already happened, but we call the penalty after the pack is reformed if we want the pack reformed. So if we get a failure to reform, chances are it happened a couple of seconds beforehand, and the penalty just being called after the pack reform. Destroying the pack. Destroying the pack. Same hand signal. Destroying the pack. When skaters illegally create a no pack situation. So one team or skater must be clearly at fault for the pack's destruction. It used to say more than a gradual deviation from pack pace. So the pack was moving at a certain speed and then one wall suddenly raced away faster than the other wall could keep up. That would be destroying the pack if they went more than 10 feet. But now that's gone away. It's just a matter of, we have to recognize when skaters have moved so fast that the opposing team doesn't have time to catch up, or they break so fast they don't have time to stop. If you do that and it goes more than 10 feet, it'll be no pack, destroying the pack, reform. Or no pack, reform, destroying the pack. The destruction's already happened. So someone's got to be clearly at fault. If they're coasting and the motion is gradual, it's not going to be a destruction of the pack. There's one exception to that. Change speed from the established speed of the pack. So pack destruction. Here's two jammers and a full pack. And the front wall slowly moves forward until you get no pack. Will there be a destroying the pack call in that situation? No. There's no destroying the pack because it was a gradual deviation. However, roller derby is played in the counterclockwise direction, so clockwise movement is held to a different standard, and they mean a higher standard than counterclockwise movement. So there's the same situation, or there's a front wall, and the four blue blockers are bridging back to recycle the red jammer. These back three move back. The bridge is broken. They're more than 10 feet. So the blue pivot moves back to reform the bridge, and in doing so, it moves more than 10 feet. Now there's a no pack. Is that a destroying the pack penalty? Yes, because the motion was in non-derby direction. That is held to a higher standard, and this skater the blue pivot is required to not break the pack apart in that direction. The blue pivot gets a penalty. You're not getting pulled over, Red Eye, are you? So another situation. The pack is the back 5 skaters, 4 blue, 1 red. Blue hits that red skater off the track. Is that a pack destruction? So we have a 4 wall and 1, and a blue blocker hits the red skater off the track. Now we have no pack. Is that a destroying the pack? Like that. Red eye, is that destroying the pack? There's no pack. That is part of regular gameplay. That is not destroying the pack. Now, the only thing here is the red skater is required to return to the track at their first legal opportunity. They are not required to skate in clockwise in non-derby direction to come back in. That means in order for the red blocker to be able to come back in legally, the blue blockers have to move forward to let her come back in. But this is not destroying the pack. The blue blockers either move forward to let her back in or move forward to reform the pack. And in this case, they move forward to reform. Does that make sense? So that's a quick primer on pack definition and pack destruction. Keep in mind, pack destruction is probably one of the most complicated things there is in Derby, or excuse me, pack definition is one of the most complicated things there is in Derby. It's not uncommon to hear, no pack is here. No pack, pack is here. I mean, it's that fast to reform. And I've seen no pack, pack is here, no pack, pack is here, no pack, pack is here. It breaks and reforms that quickly based on how skaters are moving. So that briefly is an introduction to the mindset behind officiating, the positions or behind refereeing, the positions of the 7 referees in the track, the responsibilities of the 7 referees, and defining the pack. That's the first part of learning how to be a referee, and Honey Badger's fallen asleep. Or I bored her half to death.
No, but I do have a question because I'm just wondering. Okay, so like, let's say that the red blocker that you just showed is waiting outside of the track for the blue pack to move forward.
Yep.
Okay, so let's say that blue pack isn't moving forward, but yet they are the pack because they have the majority of the players. Would the red blocker get any type of like penalty for delay a game or anything like that?
Well, remember, it's the majority of players from both teams. They're all from teams. So right now there is no pack.
Okay.
So they would have. They are obliged to either move forward so they get within 10 feet of the front blockers, or move forward to let the red blocker back on the track. They must move forward. And if they don't move forward, they will get a failure to reform penalty for not doing so. One of the blockers will get one. Right now there is no pack. Now there is a pack because of the 3 red blockers up front.
So if they did not move up, then the blue pack, like you said, would get a failure to reform.
Right. Whoever was the foremost blocker in the blue wall would get a failure to reform for not moving forward.
Thank you. I was just wondering.
Yeah, the pack is the majority of skaters within 10 feet of each other from both teams. Make sense? Cool.
Yep.
Anybody have any more questions? Okay. So that's part 1 of learning to be a Derby referee. It doesn't cover referee strategies, referee communication. I don't know, how many of you have any of you actually refereed before?
Yep.
Nathan's tipped his toes in it, but some of us are still learning. Bethany, I think, has got a little bit of experience, right, Dorothy?
I've done a couple scrimmages, but no actual game.
Okay, so skaters don't normally hear this, and skaters, when they start to referee or when they take the time to listen, are really surprised. Referees are communicating constantly. Pack is here, no pack. She has lead, lead is closed, lead is open, blue has lead. Blue 6-4 was the initiator, blue 6-4 went out. So there's constant communication between all the referees. That's a lap point. That's positional. Next lap will be a point. So there's constant communication between all the referees. And skaters aren't listening for it, so they never hear it. They're intent on what's happening on the track, which makes perfect sense. But you'll find that communication between all the officials is of paramount importance. The jam timer is saying there's 2 minutes left in the period clock is expired. You know, there's always communication between all the officials. This skater, you know, the penalty track will say this skater, you know, color number has 6 penalties. There's always something being communicated between the officials. And you'll start to hear that when you start to officiate or you start to listen for it. They're talking all the time. So they don't work in isolation. They really are a team, just like skaters and the track are a team. Skaters and the track are communicating with each other constantly. Officials are communicating with each other constantly. So we're always talking to each other. And the more you do, the more you'll hear that. The more you officiate, the more you'll hear that. All right, that's part 1. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, I'm going to call it there unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about. Anybody have any topics they want to cover? Cool. I do have a part 2, and we can do that at some point if you're interested. Yeah.
I was gonna say, could we do it the same time and everything of next week, next Tuesday?
I'm good with that, yeah.
I say let's go ahead and keep it on like a schedule.
I'm fine with that. If anybody has any questions between now and then, feel free to mail me. And I would urge all of you, if you have the availability, I know you're going to Hawaii. I know that it's tough, but if anybody can make it up for Spring Fling on May 28th, there's 8 30-minute games. You can referee, you can skate games, you can NSO, and you can get all kinds of experience. We're going to have enough referees you'll be able to ref and be shadowed by someone with experience as well as skate games. And if not, there'll be other opportunities in the future. But that one's coming up, and you're all welcome to come up if you want. All right.
We appreciate you, Mass. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mass.
See you next week.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll send an invitation out to everybody.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank
I'm driving. I cannot answer.
No problem.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.